Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're diving into a topic we get asked about a lot.
Yeah.
Making friends in the Netherlands.
Yeah, it's a big one.
It's a big one, especially from people who are new to Dutch culture.
Right.
And we've got some really interesting source material to unpack on this.
We do. It's something that comes up all the time, and it's understandable because every culture has its own kind of rhythm and its own way of building relationships, and Netherlands is no different.
Yeah. I think there's this idea that Dutch people are a little reserved.
Yeah.
Maybe even a little hard to get to know. So how do you actually go about building those connections? Like cracking the code of Dutch friendship can sometimes feel like, learning a whole new language.
That's a great way to put it. It really is like learning a new language. It takes time, it takes patience, and a willingness to kind of embrace the nuances of how things are done here.
For sure.
And one thing that's really important to remember is that, just because Dutch people might not be as outwardly expressive as in some other cultures doesn't mean that they're not friendly.
Right. And that's something that comes up in a lot of our sources.
Absolutely.
It's not about being unfriendly. It's more about a different approach to friendship.
Exactly.
One that really focuses on building trust over time.
Yeah. One of the sources used the term slow simmer.
Ooh, I like that.
To describe it. It's not like, instant BFFs.
Right.
It's about really taking the time to get to know someone to build that foundation.
Which, when you think about it, those slow-burning friendships, those are the ones that last.
Absolutely. Those are the ones that go the distance.
Right.
And there's something really beautiful about that.
Yeah.
I was reading about how many Dutch people maintain friendships from childhood or from their university days. And these are bonds that have really stood the test of time.
Wow.
And they really form the bedrock of their social lives.
I see how that might be a little intimidating for someone who's new to the Netherlands.
Sure.
If everyone already has these really close-knit groups from way back when, how do you even begin to break into that?
Well, and that's a really good point, and it's something that the sources address. It's not that those longstanding friendships are a barrier to entry.
Right.
But it might mean that you need to adjust your approach a little bit.
So what's the secret?
Yeah.
How do you navigate those initial stages of getting to know people and forming those connections?
Yeah. One of the things that our sources emphasize over and over again is patience and consistency. Dutch people really value reliability. So showing up consistently, whether it's to, a work event or a club meeting or even just a casual coffee date, it really sends a strong signal that you're invested in building that genuine connection.
So instead of trying to force those friendships, it's more about being present, showing up authentically, and letting that trust build organically.
Yeah, it's like planting a seed.
I like that.
And nurturing it.
Yeah.
You can't just throw it out there and expect it to sprout immediately.
Right.
It takes time and attention.
So then how do we approach those tight social circles? Because that feels like a big one.
Yeah, that's a common concern.
It is.
And one of the sources offered a really interesting perspective on this. Instead of focusing on trying to break into those existing circles, maybe a more fruitful approach is to focus on creating your own opportunities.
Okay. I like where this is going.
Yeah.
Tell me more. So instead of trying to force our way in, we should be focusing on building our own. Okay. I like that. Take the pressure off a little bit.
Exactly.
But what does that look like practically?
Well, I think it starts with thinking about you and what you're passionate about.
Okay.
What are your interests? Because, the Netherlands has such a vibrant culture.
Yeah.
There's something for everyone here.
It really does, yeah.
And so joining a club or an activity that really aligns with your passions is a great way to connect with people.
We saw a few examples of that in our research, like cycling clubs and cooking classes, book club.
Absolutely. And, the Netherlands is famous for its cycling culture.
That's true.
So joining a cycling club can be a really fun way to meet people, explore the countryside.
Yeah.
And cooking classes are fantastic.
It's true.
You're learning a new skill. You're barding with people over food.
Food brings people together.
It really does.
Like nothing else.
Yeah.
And book clubs are great.
Totally.
Deep conversations.
Yeah.
Shared intellectual interests.
For sure.
Sign me up for that.
Right. And I think what's great about all of these activities is that they provide that natural context for conversation.
Right.
You're already there with this shared interest.
You're not starting from scratch.
Exactly.
Okay.
It takes the pressure off.
Okay, so
trying to force that connection.
What about the whole Dutch directness thing?
Right.
Because I know that can be a little bit of a cultural hurdle for people.
Yeah, for sure.
How do you navigate that when you're trying to build these friendships?
Well, it's a great question.
Yeah.
And it is definitely something to be aware of because it can feel a little jarring.
Right.
For people who come from cultures where communication tends to be a little bit more indirect or subtle. But I think it's really important to emphasize that Dutch directness is not about being rude or insensitive.
I'm going to say.
It's really about honesty and efficiency.
Okay.
The Dutch really value clear, concise communication.
Yeah.
They kind of see beating around the bush or sugarcoating things as a waste of time.
So it's better to just be upfront
Yeah.
and genuine.
Be genuine. See what you mean. And I think even though it might feel a little bit unnatural at first, especially if you come from a culture that that values indirectness, embracing that kind of straightforward communication can actually be really refreshing.
Okay.
It can lead to more open and more authentic connections.
I like that. So rather than sort of dancing around an issue or sugarcoating things, it's like just be straightforward.
Yeah, just put it out there.
Be honest.
Exactly.
No need to overthink it.
Don't overthink it.
I can get behind that.
And, it doesn't mean that you have to completely abandon your own natural communication style.
Right.
You can still be your, kind and considerate self.
Find that balance.
Exactly.
Which seems to be the theme here.
It is.
Okay, so speaking of potentially tricky things.
Yes.
We read in our research about the Dutch tendency to plan social events.
Yes.
Way in advance.
Way in advance.
Like way in advance.
Yeah, that's real.
So, like I'm someone who, if I want to see someone, I'm like, hey, you free tomorrow for lunch?
Right.
So to think about scheduling something like weeks or even months.
Months, yeah.
In advance, I'm like, oh, that makes me a little anxious.
Right. Well, and I think, it's interesting because it's not about being inflexible.
Okay.
It's really tied to this value of time. For a lot of Dutch people, time is a very precious resource.
Okay.
And so planning is a way of honoring that and creating balance.
Like their schedules are a puzzle.
Yes.
And they want to make sure that each piece fits.
Yeah. They want to be able to fully commit to spending time with you.
Oh, that's nice.
Right. And so blocking out that time in advance is a way of doing that.
That is really considerate when you think about it that way.
It is, yeah.
But how do we meet in the middle?
Right.
Because some of us are wired for a little more spontaneity.
Sure. Well, I think it goes back to that idea of balance.
Okay.
Right? Like we were talking about before. You can embrace those pre-planned outings.
Okay.
Show your Dutch friends that you respect their time by planning things in advance when you can. But don't be afraid to also sprinkle in some of those more last-minute invitations.
So it's like, hey, it's a beautiful day. Want to take a walk in the park.
Exactly. Or want to grab a coffee after work. Yeah. Exactly.
Okay.
You might be surprised how much they appreciate that, even if it takes them a little bit out of their comfort zone.
I love that. Okay. So as we wrap up this deep dive into Dutch friendship.
Yeah.
What are some key things our listeners should remember as they are navigating this new social landscape?
Well, I think first and foremost, remember, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Okay.
Building genuine connections takes time and effort in any culture.
That's true.
And the Netherlands is no exception.
For sure.
So be patient, be consistent, and most importantly, be yourself.
Love that. Authenticity is key.
Absolutely.
And don't be afraid to put yourself out there.
Yeah.
Join some clubs.
Yeah.
Try new things. Connect with people who share your interests. You'll find your people.
You will. And, your unique perspective and your experiences are so valuable. And they add something really special to every connection that you make.
Oh, I love that. This has been so insightful.
It's been fun.
It has. So it sounds like the key to building strong friendships in the Netherlands is embracing that Dutch way of life. Yeah. But also staying true to yourself. Finding that balance.
Finding that balance, absolutely.
Between their world and yours.
I love it.
Well, that wraps up this deep dive into Dutch friendships.
It does.
We hope you learned some new insights.
Yeah.
And that you feel inspired to create some really meaningful connections.
And who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe you'll be the one to introduce your Dutch friends to a spontaneous picnic in the park.
There you go. All right, everyone, until next time, happy exploring.